And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal, Dan L. This is my channel. It's been brought to my attention that millions of women across the planet are wondering when Hollywood will show them a nude Kal-El. Today's video is entitled The Frustration Generated by the Political Right. Or I could say the frustration generated by Republicans. Recently, I was watching Fox News and Newt Gingrich was on, and he was talking about the problems with the Biden economy, and he was talking about Democrats and the political left. And he said it's like they're trying to make hot coffee by putting it in the freezer. So he was saying, well, the Democrats, they don't know how to build a nice, healthy, strong economy. And it's very frustrating listening to Republicans and conservatives and, of course, centrists because all of them attribute some sort of noble purpose to the left, to the Democrats. You hear it all the time. Here's what you hear from the right all the time, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again in the future. They always say, well, our friends across the aisle, or they'll say, the Democrats want the same thing as us. They just have a different way of going about it. No. This is the frustrating thing is the stupidity of Republicans, conservatives, and centrists. They don't understand the left. They don't understand Democrats. The Democrats are anti-civilization. They want to live in a world where there's a very tiny sliver of people at the very top. They run everything. They run everything, and everyone else is a slave. The first thing that humanity did, starting in the 20th century, well, actually starting over the last 2,000 years, is humanity wanted to enslave nature. We want to manage nature. And as I've told you before, George Carlin had it right. The worst thing humanity has ever decided is that we're in charge of everything. We're in charge of the universe. We're in charge of planet Earth. We're in charge of nature. We're not. He said, leave nature alone. He was right. But human beings, we're busy. We stick our nose where it doesn't belong. And so the problem is human beings have enslaved every creature on earth. Every form of life is now, we've tagged it, we're monitoring it, we're tracking it on sonar and radar, and we've put little metal grips around the legs, not grips, little metal rings around the legs of birds, and we've put radio collars on fish, and we've put ear tags on mammals. We've decided we have to control and manage and regulate everything. And the last thing on our list is completely controlling, regulating humanity. And the only way to do that is to enslave the human race. The goal of the left isn't to build, John F. Kennedy said, we all want a better future for our children. Well, first of all, it's interesting John F. Kennedy said that because he was cheating on his wife. Is that a better future for John F. Kennedy's children? He also, him and his father, John F. Kennedy's father, cheated to win him the election, and he knew about it. Is that building a better future? An election you stole in 1960. So the point is, he said the right thing. John F. Kennedy said but he was also naive. When I say he said the right thing, I meant he said the same right thing if we're ever to achieve a civilized society. But everyone doesn't want a better future for their children. Half of the planet wants slavery for the planet, except for a 1 millionth of 1% of the human race running, just controlling all the rest of the human beings on planet Earth. That's what the left wants. The left is it's anti-rule of law, anti-self-governance, anti-rationality, anti-logic, anti-freedom, um, anti anti-wealth, except for them. They are the exception. They get to be rich. Everyone else. You ever notice how rich people are like, God, I hate those middle class people. They have snowmobiles and they have jet skis and ATVs. That's rich people. People with jets and helicopters are upset because a middle class person has a jet ski or a snowmobile. How stupid. But that's the way the mind of rich and powerful people think. They want to control everything. Everything. And leftism is a mental illness. And Newt Gingrich has, the Republicans have, I don't know, have never figured it out. They might not ever figure it out. The Republicans and the political right and also the centrists, none of them have figured out the left. The left isn't interested in common ground. It's not interested in compromising or bipartisanship. And by the way, they don't say that. You don't hear Democrats say, we're shooting for bipartisanship. We're shooting for compromise. We're shooting to meet in the middle. That's what we want to do. You never hear the Democrats say our good friends across the aisle. They never say the loyal opposition. Those are all words you hear from Republicans. Republicans are constantly attributing who they are to the left. And of course, what does the left do? The left calls the right a bunch of Nazis, which means the left is attributing who they are to the right. So it's, think of it like men and women. Men think that the male of the human species thinks women thinks like them, but they don't. Women do not think like men, and also men don't think like women. So men are constantly thinking, well, surely a woman, is appreciates the same thing I appreciate. No, women aren't interested in the things that men are for the most. No, there are once in a while there's commonality, but for the someone once said if men and women didn't crave sex, they'd never talk to each other, and it's a joke, but it's also true. If you remove sexual um, desire from the equation, men and women are off doing their women are doing their thing, men are doing their. Well, the problem is the Republicans keep attributing, they keep thinking, well, the Democrats think like us. The Democrats are basically like us. They're just a little bit off kilter. No, the Democrats have nothing in common with the Republicans, or I should say, the political left has nothing in common with the right, and vice versa. The right actually does want civilization to succeed. The left wants to destroy civilization and enslave everything. In the Soviet Union, there was Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was at the top of the power pyramid in the USSR. He wasn't sharing power. Chairman Mao in China, he wasn't sharing power. The Kim family in North Korea, they don't share power. The Castro brothers, Adolf Hitler, the Castro, Kim family, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, none of those people, and they're all on the left. All of them statists, collectivists, dictators, totalitarians, authoritarians, socialists, communists, globalists, they're all the same thing. They think they're gods. And the only way they can be gods is if everyone else has been reduced to a slave. You can't be a god on planet Earth unless you've enslaved everything, unless you have total control over everything. And that's what the Democrats want. That's what the political left wants. And the Republicans don't get it. I don't think the Republicans have the capability to imagine how evil and hateful and horrible the left is. They don't realize, A, it's not just a mental illness. So there might be a few on the right who say, yeah, it's a mental illness, I get it. But it's not just a mental illness. It's a mental illness combined with an evil moral compass. See, to be mentally ill doesn't mean you're automatically the worst person who's ever lived. But to be mentally ill and have a goal of evil, well, then you are an existential threat to the human race. The left is a bunch of Ted Kaczynskis. The left is a bunch of Charles Mansons. You ever notice how the Democrats and the left, all their heroes are criminals? George Floyd was a criminal. Michael Brown, criminal. And I could name a whole bunch of others. But the point is, David Dorn, police captain, St. Louis, Missouri, who was killed by the left. No one cared. He's a black man. No one cared about his death. Why? Because he wasn't a criminal. Because he wasn't evil. David Dorn was a decent, hardworking, accomplished American. He believed in this. David Dorn believed in civilization, so he's not a hero. It's the people who try and tear down civilization, who try and make this an uncivil world. Those are the heroes of the Democrats, and all you have to do is go ask them who their heroes are. They're, and there was for a few seconds their hero was Martin Luther King, but it's not that anymore. It's Malcolm X now. Their hero from the '60s is Malcolm X, not Martin Luther King. Um, and my hero, or one of my heroes, is Martin Luther King because he wasn't perfect, but he had it right. He had it figured out. He wanted a world where the content of the human character was what mattered, and not in a negative way, in a positive way. The content of the human character had to be filled with courage, gentility, wisdom, rationality, logic. That's what and so he wanted to fill up the content of the human character with our most noble qualities. Malcolm X wanted to cater to the worst parts of humanity, the worst parts of our personalities. So Newt Gingrich, it's frustrating to listen to Newt or any Republican or anyone who's a conservative or anyone who's in the center. None of them understand that even though John F. Kennedy said we all want the same thing for our children, A, that's not true. Half the planet wants a nightmare future for their children because they don't care about their children. They just care about themselves and accumulating power. That's all they care about. They care about today and having ultimate power today. They're not worried about the future. They're not, and they pretend they're worried about the past. But what they're really worried about is how they can accumulate absolute power over everyone. And the right doesn't get it because and John and they and when they and when there's someone like John F. Kennedy, and by the way, John F. Kennedy probably wouldn't even be accepted into the Democrat Party today. But the point is, John F. Kennedy is an example of how they say stuff to make you think that they are one thing, and then they call everyone who opposes them something else. But what they really are is what they call other people. Whatever Democrats in the left call other people, that's what they are. They're projecting who they are onto other people. And unfortunately, Republicans do the same thing. They attribute all these wonderful qualities to the left. They don't possess any of those qualities. And it's frustrating. It's amazing someone as intelligent and as well educated as Newt Gingrich doesn't get it. He's so blind and deaf. Same thing for all the Republicans and all the conservatives. They don't get it. And and I like Rush Limbaugh wasn't perfect, but I like Rush Limbaugh because he understood. You have to defeat them, and it has to be a permanent defeat. You have to strip the left of all of its power, and if that means, and if they're going to break the law, that means they have to go to prison. So if everyone on the left is pro law breaking or pro criminality, and they enable criminals and they do criminal acts, then you have to put them into prison. It's not complicated. If they're preaching hate and violence, and then they execute what they're preaching, they have to go to jail. And if they do, and the crime is bad enough, they have to be put on death row and executed. They have to be stripped of power permanently. And the Republicans don't believe it. You know what you heard the Republicans say? They say, "I want a country where there's a healthy Democrat Party." That's like a Jewish person in 1930s Germany saying, in order to have this diverse society in Germany, I want a healthy Nazi party. No, no. Nobody who's got a brain that works wants a healthy Nazi party or a healthy communist party or any sort of healthy totalitarian party, statist party. Nobody wants that. If you have critical thinking skills and you're logical and rational and you're mentally healthy, you don't want those things. But yet you hear that from Republicans constantly. I don't want the Democrats to lose every. I like this. You know what you hear from Republicans? I like this 50-50 balance. I think it's great that there's this tension between, I think America's better when you have half of America's Democrats and half as Republicans. No, the Democrats, we should have exterminated them at the end of the Civil War. The Democrat Party, which was instrumental in the bloodiest battle in American history, the Civil War, they should have been completely disenfranchised and destroyed. Every mechanism of the Democrat Party should have been obliterated. They should. Every Democrat who still held on to the beliefs of slavery and the Confederacy and all that bullshit, they all should have gone to prison. Every last one of them. And they should have stayed there for the rest of their lives. And the ones who were going to be violent in prison should have been put to death. That was today's video. Thanks for stopping by. And think about it. Bye-bye.